Hello, guys. Good morning. I'm audible.
Yes, indeed. Good morning.
Good morning, sir. Audible.
Okay, just give me a minute. Arun is not joined, and Sharif, Omar Sharif.
Yes, sir. Morning.
Why you not joined yesterday?
Sir was not well, sir. Like I got up, then again I slept off, sir, like due to headache.
Did you informed anybody?
No, sir.
You need to inform, right? At least, even though after some time.
Yes, sir. I forgot. Sorry.
Just a minute. Okay. See why we need to ask these. Okay, we need the candidate to be learned and joined session on time, and they are on a track. Because when if you skip one day, so that will get, so you will be having a break, right? So you need to inform somebody at least, uh, saying that you are well aware or not well informed to Swami or anybody in the team.
Okay, sir. Going forward, I'll keep you posted in case if something comes up.
This we are informing from day one only, right? Okay, so everyone clear on all the concept, right? So
Yes, sir.
including Jenkins, Docker, and you have a clarity, right?
Yes.
Because I'm going to start the rest of the concept from Kubernetes. Okay, so just give me a minute. Okay, so I'll go with the next concept in Kubernetes called deployments. Okay, so as I said, I have given the statement for deployment. So Kubernetes deployments, right? So that defines the instances of the pod. Okay, so where we use the replicas. Replicas nothing but we do create instances automatically. Okay, so when you create a deployment, when you delete a pod also, it will recreate automatically so that we will not get any downtime, right? So Kubernetes deployments defines the instances of the pod. So I have given the statement, right? And that runs the containerized applications. Let me share my screen. Let me log into the AWS account. Amruta, is your account working stable? Amruta B. Sorry, Amruta B, correct. Your AWS account.
Yes, it is working.
Okay. So let's log into that. So everyone created a cluster, right? That the Minikube, the setup. Everyone has that setup, right? I'll just share my screen. I'm asking you guys.
Yes, we have.
Yes, indeed.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we'll have to go with the T2 2x large because the requirement is very high. So let's finish the Kubernetes, all the concept until this your account might get deactivated due to billing. So when we use the large amount of instances, we'll get more billing, right? So we'll make use that. Test running. Let's explore on the Kubernetes deployments. Okay. So let's log into this instance. Followed by IP. I don't know, I did not use this long time. We'll see. Okay, I'm able to log in. Let's check the Docker status. Sudo systemctl status Docker, correct? It is running. Let's check the Minikube status, the cluster which we created. I think this is not running then. Okay, let's start the Minikube. We'll see if it works. Because we have downloaded and we kept the package, right? The initially when we create a server. Minikube start. Okay, now this is configured. And let's set the alias Minikube to kubectl. Okay, now kubectl get pods. Okay, let's increase the font size first. Change settings, appearance, change 18. Okay, so is it clear, right? Is it visible, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, now we'll have a discussion on, see, we have discussed about pods and the namespaces, right? So let's go for the deployment, the next concept in Kubernetes. Okay, so deployment. So what is meant by this deployments? I have already given the statement. Deployments are so deployments defines the instances of the pod, right? That runs the containerized applications. So Kubernetes deployments defines the instances of the pod that runs the containerized applications, right? Okay, so we do create a deployment. Okay, so we do create a deployment. So every services, every component that in Kubernetes, we do have the YAML configuration. We have to write the proper YAML configuration to deploy it in Kubernetes components, right? So till now we created pod by writing a YAML configuration, and similarly we will write the deployment configuration. So how do we write and what it contains, what are all the parameters it has in the deployment.yml, right? So now let's go to the server. So we do have the pod.yml, right? So if I do ls, so let's delete this pod, right? So let's check the context, right? So how do we check the context? How do we check the context? kubectl config view mini5 grep namespace, right? We here, this is how we set a context. Context nothing but switching a namespace, right? You guys are with me?
Yes, sir.
You forgot all Kubernetes concepts or what by revising Jenkins and Docker? Are you aware of these? The context nothing but we are switch between the namespaces, right?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we are in the default namespace, right? So let's see what are all the context, I mean the namespaces which are available in our existing cluster. Okay. So let's check the kubectl get ns is to list the namespaces, right? Sorry. Instead of kubectl get ns, right? So there are, including default, there are one namespace which is available, right? That we created. Let's switch to that. So how do we switch? kubectl config set context, right? And then we'll switch to the, we will create all the resource in a particular specific namespace, right? Switch to dev, right? See here, you can see context modified, right? Means you are setting a context. Means you switch between the namespaces. You are switching to the namespace called dev, right?
Yes.
Yes,
So
sir.
similarly, we do have the different environment namespaces and we switch between the namespaces and we do create a resources, right? So what I said for namespace, so the namespaces are the group of name, right? So which we create a resources, right? The bundle of resources that are tagged in a name. So the Kubernetes resources in a single name that we are tagging it, right? The bundle of resources, which means here, so our resources which are available in where? In the dev namespace, right? So if I do kubectl get pods, if you created it should be available, right? So this pod is available only in where? The dev namespace, right? Suppose if you are in default namespace, was it listing any pods? No, right? Because we have not created any resources in default because we will not make use of those default namespaces. What are default namespaces? Default namespaces are including default. See, the name itself is default. You're getting the statement here. The namespace name itself is default. Means the default namespaces are kube system, kube public, kube node release, and default. These four are the default namespaces. The dedicated namespace that we created is dev. Okay, in the organization, the real-time organization, they will be having some the namespaces based on your security groups, your account. Okay, say suppose if you are in here, if you go to your security, here you will be having your security groups, right? Under security groups, it shows the, okay, here only we can see this is your instance. Your instance is under US East 1D, correct? This is your region, right? Availability zone. Based on this, we will be having the namespaces, okay, based on the zones, right? They might have any namespaces, either maybe zones related or maybe environments. They can have multiple namespaces based on the resources they have, okay? You getting my point? Only the name difference, that's it.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now if I do ls, we do have the pod.yaml. Similarly, see, so when you run kubectl get pods, so we are able to list the nginx pod which is running in the dev namespace. As soon as you spin up a pod, as soon as you start Minikube is as I already said, Minikube is one of the cluster which is provided from the Kubernetes community to work all the Kubernetes concepts. Okay. Now similarly pod.yaml, we do create deployment.yaml. That's how it works. Let's see. Let's explore deployments. What is mean by this instances, how it works, and what the deployment does in Kubernetes, right? So let's do create vi deployment dot YAML. Keep in mind dot YML is different, dot YAML is different. Okay. So all the resources that we do create in YAML format, that is YAML. Okay, you can pronounce it as YAML. Okay, now let's create it. What is the first line of our config? What is our first line? API, right? API version. You guys are with me?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
API version colon, and what is the version of Kubernetes that we are using currently?
V1.
Yes, version apps. Okay, V1. And what is the kind that we wanted to create here?
Kind is pod.
Kind is pod. Pod we have created already.
Not pod.
It's deployment, right?
Yeah, deployment.
The kind that we wanted to create here is deployment,
Yeah.
right? And metadata. So what metadata metadata should come here. Metadata. So what metadata that we wanted to use? We'll use the same Nginx. Okay.
Hmm.
So name, the name we will keep it as Nginx deployment. Okay. And that metadata will keep, name should come after
Yeah.
2 space.
We can define the namespace here too, right?
Yes, you can define the namespace directly here.
Yeah.
And let's keep the labels. Okay, I'll explain what is this labels.
Tags.
Labels app. Okay, under app, I'll define Nginx. Okay, so I have written a labels here. Okay, so what is this labels? What the label will do in Kubernetes? Similar label that we used in Jenkins, right? Whenever we need to point to the particular node, and we create a label while connecting to that node. That node contains all the dependencies to run our Jenkins stages, correct? So similarly, we do have labels in Kubernetes. We have two concepts, labels and selectors. Okay, so I'll explain more in further sessions. As of now, labels and selectors that defines the core grouping the Kubernetes concepts, Kubernetes concept component, core grouping in the sense, if I am pointing labels, I'm grouping it Nginx in the name of Nginx deployment as a label called Nginx. You getting my point here? The labels that I'm pointing here is for an app of Nginx deployment. See, Nginx is your image. For that image, we are creating a deployment for our Nginx pod that we created. Means the instances that we are creating for Nginx pod, right? Remember that we have created a pod.yaml and we deployed it, right? For that particular pod, we need to have the deployment, the instances of the pod, right? The deployment defines the instances of the pod that runs on the containerized application. That's how we do define. We'll label it as the label name called app that Nginx. Okay, now let's go to the spec. Spec should come here, correct? You need to follow the proper syntax. Specs. Here, I'm going to write replicas. Under replicas, I'm going to define 3. What is this replicas? Replicas will create the deployment count of 3. The instances that create, this is the parameter, it will create an instances from deployment. Suppose instead of 2, when you point, instead of 3, when you point 2, it will create a 2 instances of deployment. Okay, see, we created pod. For that particular pod, we'll have to have the instances from deployment. So this is the only component will create a replicas. Instead of 2, if we 0.5, it will create a 5 deployment of your pod. Okay, as of now, we'll keep it 2. The replicas, I'll show once we deploy this deployment, no? So we'll see how this deployment works and what we're gonna see here. Okay, now I'm gonna point selector. Okay, selector. So what is this selector? See, once you define your label here, labels. So I'm naming it as label called Nginx for an app. Under selector, I'm gonna give as match labels. Okay, so under match labels, I'm gonna call my labels which I called above under metadata, right? So what is my label for app, Nginx app? I'm giving it as Nginx. Okay, and I do also have the template that I need to define here. It should come under selector. Okay, so under template, see the format is like this only for deployment. Okay, template, and under template we do also have the metadata. Okay, under metadata I'm gonna call again labels to pick that particular app which we defined above. Under app Nginx. Okay, so now the spec should come under this metadata. Okay, our container spec and followed by containers, right? Followed by containers and start the hyphen, and the name of our container is what? Nginx, right? And the image name would be Nginx with the followed by with the version, right? What is the version that we used? 14.2, right?
Yes.
And the ports, okay, the container port, right? Start the hyphen from here and the container port. Container port would be 80, right? So this is what the deployment YAML looks like, this only. Okay, so we do have 3 major component and here under spec. See, here I used under spec. There is one more spec, right? See, for deployment, we have to define our replicas, the first component. The second component is selector. The third component is template. Okay, let me explain this. So as I said, replicas, under replicas, this is the only component which creates the instances. Okay, see, you need to remember this way only. Replicas, when you create in point of replicas, if you define 3, it will create the 3 instances. Okay, you will get to know once we do the deployment. Okay, now selector, what is mean by selector? See, selectors and match labels are the grouping resources in Kubernetes. Okay, so you are selecting it in terms of match label. Okay, you are labeling it app to Nginx. Okay, wherever you called app, it will pick your Nginx only. Means you are setting alias here, right? You're getting my point. Wherever you are calling in your complete YAML configuration, your complete project, in the complete this YAML, wherever you call app : Nginx, it will particularly pick your pod. Getting my point? That's how we do the match labels. Similarly, the third component under template. Okay, under the spec, we do have a template. This template has 2 components, metadata and the spec. So what is this template? Templates are the, see, as soon as we did the deployment, as soon as we run kubectl apply deployment.yml, correct? we do apply it, right? This template will only helps to create our instances with a particular image that we defined under metadata and the spec, right? See, remember you can remember easily, right? So under spec, we do have a 3 component: replicas, selector, and template. And replicas, we're going to point the instances that we're going to create. Under selector, we are defining a label here, the second component. Under template, we do define the metadata again, with whatever the label that we added here, we're going to call it under metadata. See, when you call your app Nginx, it will pick your pod, so that you are wantedly pointing that under deployment.yaml to pick your particular pod to create instances of replica 2. You were able to understand this statement?
Yes.
You guys are with me, right?
Yeah.
Yes, Sandeep.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And there is the second component called under template, the spec. This obviously you know the container that we're going to define for our deployment. Okay. So containers, under containers, we do have a container name. And before that, your container should be running in locally. This will pull from the remote. Okay. Nginx container will pull from the remote. Okay. And the image name with a version and the ports that uses this container, used by this container. Okay. Now let's save this. Let's do the deployment. So how do we do? How do we deploy it?
kubectl.
kubectl. Yes.
Apply deployment.
-f, then the file name
Deployment.yaml, correct?
-ns if required.
That we know it because already we are already
Yeah.
setting a context to dev
Yeah.
here, right? So let's do the deployment. What it is saying, what is the output that we got?
Created.
Means the deployment is created, right? So before running, we were having only the pod, right, of Nginx, right? 1 of 1. This should be always 1 of 1. If you have a 1 pod, it should be 1/1. If your ready state it is 1/0, your pod is not running. You need to debug the pod. You need to fix the issue. Okay. Now, once we create a deployment, how do we list a deployment?
kubectl get pods.
Get pods.
That is pod. How do we get the deployment?
Get all.
Get deployment.
Okay.
Okay. So similarly, the pod that we created, we do have the kubectl get deployment. Okay. Now see, I have given the name. Let's do cat.yml, right? So now I have the deployment name Nginx deployment. Okay. What is the name that I have given in my configuration? Nginx deployment, correct? The name under metadata,
Yes.
right? And the labels that I have defined strictly pointed to app Nginx, right? And here the status is saying ready 2/2 means I have 2 deployments, the count of replicas, right? Correct, right? So it will be created 2 deployments, up to date 2 and the available 2. Suppose if you see pod that we created is 1 only, right? The count.
Yes.
Here we do have you were able to understand this replicas?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Sandeep.
So it will create a 2 deployments, right? And the selectors, and it goes to the template and it picks this particular label and picks the particular pod that you had defined for your label app :Nginx. Then it will create a deployment of this container of replicas 2. Now, what is the benefit of this deployment, right? Now we do have kubectl pod, right? Instead of that, get pods, right? Kubectl get pods. I have, see, if you run kubectl get pods, it is listing 3, right? So one that we created from pod.yml, rest 2 are created from the deployment, correct?
Yes.
Correct, right?
Yes, yes,
Now,
yes.
now if I delete kubectl
Delete.
RM. What is meant by delete? Okay, let's see if we are able to create it or not. Okay, delete. Okay, kubectl delete. Sorry, this pod. What it is saying?
I
Okay, it is
mentioned
saying
delete
it
pod.
is
Let's see.
kubectl.
Delete pod. Then give the name of it. I don't remember
Oh,
actually.
wait, kubectl
Delete pod.
Delete
delete
pod.
pod, and
Then the
let's
name of it.
point this pod. Okay, now it is
Okay.
deleted. Let's run the get pods. Now it is recreated, correct? Immediately. See,
Yeah.
within a second it's created as soon as it's deleted, correct? Due to
Yes.
what? This is due to the deployment that we created, right?
In
Say,
the replicas. Hmm.
yes, correct. So say, remember that I'm gonna create, I'm gonna delete this, okay? 64 and the last digit will be 7KT, KL, okay? Let's delete this, okay? Now, if I go to the delete pod, remember that we are deleting 7KL, correct?
Hmm.
Now it is deleted. So if I run kubectl get pods, it should be created with a different name that we created as 7KL, right? Here it is listing 7KL and now it is recreated, right? Means our pod is always up and running when we do the deployment. You can implement this technology that we are in a when we are in a application downtime. We will not get any downtime, right? We will not get any application downtime when we have a deployment configured in our Kubernetes cluster. Getting my point?
Yes.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once your pod is deleted also accidentally, it will recreate within a fraction of second, right? So that why can't we go this? Why can't we suggest this technology in the market that we have this method to create it and we will not get any downtime? Correct, right?
Yeah.
Now,
Yes, Sandeep.
yes. So this is what we do implement this deployment when we return as deployment.yaml, correct? Now we
Hmm.
have the replicas created too, and it will create a instances of pod of which pod, the Nginx pod, create an instances of this means we are increasing the load of our pod by creating a deployment of replicas too, and the labels and the match labels that we are using to group the name, right? Now, similarly, if your deployment fails, how do we debug? Correct? For that, we do have what I'll do. I'll copy this. I'll put it here. Deployment dot YAML. Okay. Now, how do we deploy it? Apply, right? kubectl apply -f. Here it is. So under replicas, you can create three. It will create a three pod. Okay. So let's do that. Okay. What I'll do now, instead of row pi deployment.yaml, modify it. Let's make 2 to 3, or let's make it 4. So it will create a 4 pods of Nginx, right? So once you edit, you need to redeploy it, right? Control R, apply. Okay, deployment.yaml. Right now, if you run kubectl get pods, It should be created with the 4 pods, right? 4 deployment. It will create it within a fraction of second. So it will leave the existing created and the rest of the pods it will create immediately within a fraction of second. See, here you can see the 6 seconds, right? 6 seconds ago. So as soon as you are getting this output, deployment is configured, immediately it would have created the deployment. That's how this Kubernetes, it interlinked with Docker and it runs the zero downtime. Okay, you getting this?
Yes.
Yes,
Now,
sir.
yes. Now, how do we get the deployment? kubectl get deployment, right? So we do have the deployment name called Nginx deployment and the instances, the pod that we created for, it should be always 4/4. If it is 4/3, your 3 pods are running, the one is not running, that you need to debug and you need to do exec the pod and do debug it. Up to date 4 and then available 4. Okay, and the age that we created 8 minutes ago. Okay, now how do we check the deployment logs, right? Similarly that we do for pods, right? So how do we check the log, right?
kubectl logs.
kubectl
Logs.
kubectl
Logs.
logs.
Yeah.
Let's describe it. kubectl
Ah.
describe deployment, right?
Yes, this is the other way.
Okay, now see, let's go with the flow. So that we did for pod, describe the pod. So similarly, you can see the logs of deployment. So once your deployment fails, right, you will not able to see these events. Okay, you need to check why you are not able to see the events and why the deployment is not done properly, right? Let's explore on this deployment once we do the describe. To see the logs of your deployment, the name that we have Nginx deployment, space that we have dev, and the created timestamp on Friday, so on date, and the labels here. See, labels, we pointed app is equal to Nginx, and the annotations, we use annotations. We are doing deployment.kubernetes.io. This is the API of our Kubernetes. The revision, currently we are in version 1. That's what it is giving under annotations. Okay, and the selectors. Okay, we are giving selectors means select, we are intentionally selecting the label that we pointed app is equal to Nginx. When we define selectors under YAML, it will select the particular label app is equal to Nginx. You were able to understand these selectors?
Yeah.
It will select, it will pick the particular pod. Of that pod, it is creating an instances. Okay, and similarly we do have replicas. As I said, if you provide 3, the instances which will be created from the replicas only. 4 desired, 4 updated, 4 total, 4 available, and 0 unavailable. This is very important from your logs. See, you need to check each and every line. You need to understand each and every line in the pod.description, describe pod, describe deployment, describe namespace, whatever the command that you run in your Kubernetes cluster, you need to understand each and every line. Then only you will be understandable of each and every concept in any of the tool, right? Now, this strategy type, what is meant by the strategy type? Strategy type that we are using, see, remember, if it is not working, we need to roll back. We'll go to the older revision, deployment strategy, right? So the strategy type, it is rolling update, means we are in a existing deployment of Nginx with the selector replicas 4, right? And if you want to roll back to the deployment with the older version, what we need to do? We need to go with, see, currently we are in the version of 1.14.2. What is meant by rollback? Rollback means we are switching the older version of what Docker container. Instead of 14, you can point 1.12.2, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Correct, right? Means the strategy type that it is giving here is rolling update. Means we are in a existing, the present version, the 1.14.2. Then rollback means you will switch to the 1.12.2. Where you need to configure? You need to configure under your deployment.yml, and you need to create it and you need to redeploy it. Means you are rolling back, rollback, right? Also, that pod should be available with this version only. What is your pod configuration? You getting my point? What I'm trying to say here? Cat, what I'll do, cat pod.yml. Your pod version should be 1.12.2 when you are deploying, when you are roll back to your 1.12.2 of deployment. See, the one thing that you keep in mind, whatever the version that you are using when creating a pod, for this pod, we are creating a deployment of instances replicas 4. You need to follow the same version in pod, same version in deployment, same version in services that you're creating in your Kubernetes cluster. Okay. Suppose if you don't want to keep your existing rolling update deployment strategy, you go to rollback. You can do rollback because when you deploy your pod, when you deploy your deployment, even though if your application is not up and running, you can switch to you can roll back, right? Because you know already that the previous version is stable, right? Your containerized application is stable, was stable. Then once you upgrade it to 1.14.2, when it is not stable, you can undo, means rollback, correct? That you can do, no?
Yeah.
So you can keep the application up and running always, right? That's how the deployment works, and that's how you need to understand each and every component in pod.yml also once you create it. Similarly for deployment also. Okay, now see this, it creates with a 0th second. As soon as it creates, ready seconds means 0. If it is 0, immediately 0th second, it will not take any much time to recreate it, correct? That's how this min ready seconds define. And then rolling update strategy. It is saying some percentage max unavailable and 25 max surge. It is basically to the rolling update strategy based on some percentage. Okay, now here, pod template, right? So remember that under deployment, if I do cat deployment, where is my deployment.yml? Oh, I'm in a small letter. Deployment.yml. See here under templates, I do have this spec, right? So similarly, we should see when you do the describe deployment, the templates, the pod template, right? So the pod template that we defined labels app is equal to nginx, and the containers, it points a particular container with a version and the port used by that container which is running. And if you created host port, it will point it here, the environment. If you define the environment in your pod.yml under template here, it gives the environment here. It gives the environment here from the logs. And if you have created the mounts, the volumes and bind mounts, if you mounted any volume to this pod from your container, it gives the mounts and the volumes that you created in this container. It would have given the volumes here and the node selector. Okay, so this node selector will come under labels and the selectors. So I'll cover this in the further session. So what is meant by this node selectors, and there are some set of labels. There are types of labels that we have to explore on more. Okay, so as of now, you can understand node selectors are empty. We can define the node selectors to pick a particular node, correct? So we do have the node in Kubernetes cluster, right? So how to get a node? kubectl get nodes, right? So what is our node? Minikube is our node, right? The roles of that is control plane. You getting my point? You were able to understand the
Yes.
Kubernetes complete architecture. We do have the node contain pod contains your Docker image, right? Docker container. Now we are in a particular cluster. Inside that we do have a node. Our node is Minikube currently. And inside that node, we have our pod. Inside that pod, we have our container, Docker container of the version 1.14.2. Correct?
Yes, sir.
You guys are with me?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. For the pod created of Nginx, we do have the created of deployment, right? So we are exploring more in the Kubernetes concepts, right? Correct, right? This is what I have given the concepts here. I mean, the here, right? Pod is done. Now we understood the namespaces, we understood the deployment, and we are currently understanding how do we debug, how do we check the logs. Once your deployment fails, what to check and where to check, right? And next we'll discuss on services in further session. Now currently we're in deployment, right? Now where I was here, and then if you pointed any node selectors, it would have given here, and the tolerations, okay, that you forget as of now. Tolerations are very, if there are any probes are failed, it will gives the tolerations here, some count, some name. Okay, now under conditions, right? So what is mean by these conditions? The type, you will see type, status, and reason. What is mean by this type? The progressing and the available. These two are always true under status. If these two are false, you are an issue with your deployment. Okay, and the reason, it will gives the reason immediately here. Your pod is crashed, your container is not running. Some reason it will give. Based on this error only, based on this statement, you can debug your deployment. Getting my point?
Yes, Sandeep.
The particular component that you need to check exactly in the deployment is, the first point is conditions, and the second point you do check your pod template, I mean complete deployment logs that you need to check. Means once you done your kubectl describe deployment, you need to check each and every line, each and every point. Then only you are confidently saying your deployment is working 100%. The task that you achieved from your end is, once you thoroughly check the logs of deployment, thoroughly check the logs of pod, then only you can say confidently, my deployment is working fine. Right? Similarly, we do have the old replica sets. Currently, the old replica sets are none. The new replica set is this only. Correct? So Nginx deployment, it creates some number, right? And the replicas of count 4. And then after that, we can see the events. So if you're not able to see this is very important. We should see the events of type, reason, age, from, and the message. This is the only message that you can understand. And wherever you see this condition reason, this should be the message. It will help you to debug your deployment. So whenever there is a method to create your pod or deployment, there is also a debug method will be available for each and every concepts, correct? We should understand that also. Correct, right?
Yes.
You guys are with me?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, Sandeep.
So you need to check your events this way, and check your deployment, and check your each and every component. Then completion of all these, your debug method, you can go that my deployment is working 100%, right? kubectl get pods. You can say that your deployment is working fine. If you delete any of the pod, it will recreate automatically. See, till these are same, right? The logs, when you see the describe log here, this till here it will be same in any of the pod in the deployment, right? Correct, right? C66. See here you can see that every pod is only difference the last 5 digit, right? After hyphen 1, 2, 3, 4, right? So this is how we can differentiate your pod of Nginx. See, when you are in a large applications, if your pod itself is taking some 2 to 3 GB, you cannot create your pod with the low space of your server. Okay, so what is our server size? df-h. The temps dev root is always available is only 822 MBs and temps are 16 GB. See, this will divide based on your configuration. Okay, your RAM size, your complete memory. Okay, based on this you can decide for the working purpose. But when you are in the real-time project or when you join the organization, they will be having more space and you can explore more in the Kubernetes components. You can create pod, you can create deployment, right? Now, so what I wanted to do, so describe, you got the describe, right? And then how do we check and what to check in the logs?
Yes.
Let's copy the command kubectl describe deployment. Okay, and deployment and followed by the deployment name. Okay, you need to point your deployment name here. Suppose when you have a multiple deployment, you need to point the particular deployment name. Okay. Similarly, kubectl describe pod followed by the pod name, right? So
Yeah.
we point the deployment name here. Now, we used some labels, right? Correct, right? In the deployment configuration, correct? This label,
Yes.
right? How do we get to know that label is tagged to that particular pod, correct? So we do have a command in Kubernetes, kubectl, anyways, we know the command to get a pod, correct? Kubectl get pods hyphen show what labels, right? So this will list what happened. Kubectl get pods. Okay, maybe there will be a space. Why it is not working? Kubectl get pods hyphen show. Okay, there might be an issue with this command. I might be running a wrong command. See, this command will show, it will give the pods with the particular labels. Okay, so say suppose this command should print these 4 pods because complete this 4 pod that we tagged at the label called app is equal to Nginx, correct? Correct, right? From this
Yes.
command, we can get to know that it should list our 4 pods. Okay, you can explore this command. I'll just give it here. So if it is not working, then might be you will have to do the fine tuning. That's it. Okay, to list the pods which are tagged in a particular label, which are tagged in a particular label, because I'll be using this command daily, but in Minikube, I'm not sure why it is not giving. Might be you will have to give space, or maybe you can explore this. This is the command.
Sir, within the show and the labels, there should be an icon. I have icon.
Hyphen labels, right?
Yeah, between the show and labels.
Yeah. Hyphen labels, huh?
Yes. There's no space between show and the icon.
Okay. Okay, now it is giving. we are also used the Nginx pod as a label. -hyphen show -hyphen labels it is. Okay. But it should give only 4. You need to do the fine tuning of this command because it is including your normal pod Nginx, right? Let's do cat. It should not show that Nginx. Did we use any label here? No, right? Then why it is listing? You need to modify some command. This, okay. That's okay. You can have a, but you are getting the point here, right? So how do we get a pod that which is tagged with a particular label, right?
Yes.
Okay, see here you can under the labels. See, you can see here, right? Under labels, it is none. And for rest of the 4 pods, it is giving app is equal to Nginx, right? And also you can modify this command if you know, okay? Name, I don't know if this works or not. App, might be name colon. So I was used one time while debugging the deployment. Let's see if this works or not. Name colon app. No, you need to modify this. That's it. So till here is same. kubectl get pods, and also you can do grep, right? Grep name grep. What is happening here? Shift. Yes. Now grep app is equal to engine. This will definitely give your pod, but we should go with this command. It should always print your pods which is tagged to the particular label. Okay, so this is how you need to modify this command. Okay, so I was using this command, but I'm not sure why it is not working here. I used say name colon app is equal to Nginx. Might be it is different for in Minikube. You can check on that. You're getting the point here.
Yes.
This, so it will list a pod which is tagged to the particular pod, particular label. Okay. Clear, right? So any questions and any doubts, guys? So I'm gonna share this in the group, and also, yeah. Any
Yes.
questions and any
I
doubts?
have few questions. So if we define replicas,
Mm.
and if we define 2 or 3, if we delete one pod, so then is it going to terminate the whole instance and then create a new one, or is it creating the pod itself inside that instance?
When you delete a pod, it will not gonna affect your instance.
But so where exactly is creating the replicas? Within the same instance of 2 containers, or?
See, this in replicas are creating from your deployment. From your deployment only, it is creating, not from your instance configuration. Okay, say suppose if you have kubectl get deployments, right? You have the deployment name called Nginx deployment. Inside this your deployment, you have 4 pods of kubectl get pods. Okay, you have this 4 pod which is created from your deployment name called Nginx, right?
Yeah.
If you delete your deployment of this, your 4 pods will get deleted, and it will not be recreated when you are not having your deployment in place.
No, that is not my question. My question here is, so where exactly are these 4 pods getting created? Is it within the same server, or is it creating multiple?
No. Wait. These pods are creating inside your node, inside your instance only, inside your server. We do have our Kubernetes configuration, right?
Yeah.
Inside our Kubernetes configuration, we are in a cluster called Minikube, kubectl Minikube, and inside Minikube is a cluster which is powered by Kubernetes community. Inside Minikube cluster, we do have a node Inside node, we do have our pod called Nginx. Inside that, inside your node, we have our pod, we have our deployment. That's how it creates.
Then
It is inside the cluster only.
what if the server goes down? The whole
Everything will go down if your server went down. Your
Okay.
cluster will be gone case, your pod will be gone case, your application itself is, because you are trying to expose your application by creating your pod, by deploying your pod, by deploying your deployment, right?
Yes.
You're
Yeah.
exposing your application to the web by
Hmm.
exposing it. But before exposing, we need to have the configuration in the Kubernetes cluster, right? Say like instead of your Nginx, you might build your own application that you containerize it. You kept it in Docker file. That container that you created a particular pod by configuring your Kubernetes cluster. Inside that, you will have the default node. Inside default node, you will be having your deployments to handle more traffic between your application. If your instance is deleted, if your instance is down, your application is obviously down.
But how do we manage it? How do you overcome that one?
The instance management that you're asking,
Yeah, because we have to manage the application high availability, right? If the instance goes down, or if the region have any issues, connectivity issues, then what will happen? How
see
do we manage it?
this, okay. Say suppose if we are in some organization and
Yeah.
we should not have the application down, right?
Yeah.
So either way, we should create a template to create instance. See, currently the instances that we're creating manually, correct?
Hmm.
We should automate by deploying a templates whenever there is a instance is down. The other instance should support to this zone if it is down. That we do create by deploying a templates, and we do construct the deployment templates in our what to say, in our Terraform templates, or maybe in your AML templates, that we do have the backup called another instances to be up and run always if one is down. Okay, so whatever the configuration that you have in with these instances, it should also replicate it in the another instances. But it will come when this instances is only down, is getting down. Then that mechanism we need to implement under our configuration files, which is from our Terraform templates or maybe cloud templates, the cloud formation, the infra. This will come under platform, right? So we are making platform up and run always. Inside our platform, we have our resources, right? Resources in the sense your Jenkins, your Docker, your all the tools, right? Your pipelines, everything runs on this instance, your resource. To maintain a complete infra, we should have the proper templates to be deployed, and we should construct the proper mechanism. If your instance is down, you need to have the backup always, the replica of this instance to this. And if it is getting down, in the template itself, you need to write some condition. If your Kubernetes under name, the Kubernetes, the instance ID, if it is getting down, immediately give the backup. That we should implement the construction that we need to do from the template itself. That's how we do.
Okay.
Is that clear?
Yeah, got it, sir.
Yes. Anybody has any questions, guys?
Sandeep, we are updating replicas 4. So all are working, right? So we'll get any chance out of 4, 3 only working? Means everything same, right?
Yeah. So either, yeah, all 3 are same. I got your question. So out of these 4, what if these 3 are 1/1? What if it is 1/0? Correct? That's what your question, right?
Yes.
Now, see, this might happen when you have a network lagging. Say, suppose when you run deployment kubectl apply deployment, till your network will be available creation of these 3 pods. By the time creating with a 4th pod, you will be having some lagging in network, or maybe some
Storage
glitch
issue.
in your VPN.
Hmm.
What happened?
Maybe it may cause due to storage issues too, right?
Yes, storage. That's what I was trying to say.
Hmm.
The creation of these three pod, during this creation of these three pod, it takes some, say like milliseconds. See, anything may happen when we have a containerized applications in milliseconds also. If it is creating these three pod, if you have a lagging in network, or maybe space issue, if it was creating a fourth pod, you might get a space issue, or maybe your instance is down during creation of your pod, this instance, right? That time you will get this fourth pod 1/0. We faced this issue, we fixed it by seeing describe kubectl, describe kubectl, describe pods followed by the pod name. You can do describe. So under events, it should show clearly container, and if it is any error, it would have shown here. That's how we need to debug the pod. Getting my point? That is the situation. We will get a out of 4, we'll get 3 are up and running, and 1 is not created due to a space issue. Maybe your network is down, maybe your infra is down, maybe you will have the glitch in your network. That we should be very careful that we're creating a deployment and see the logs. We need to check the log, and based on logs only we need to debug.
Okay. And one more question.
Mm.
So now we have deployed Nginx here, right? So locally, can we check that UI means UI page?
UI, see, currently we have not created any cluster in UI, right? We are using a platform to run platform as a server here, right? With a X large. But we can see in UI when you have your cloud clusters, which is your EKS, right? From AWS and EKS from Azure. We can connect to that cluster and we can see the pods, we can see the nodes, we can see the deployment that we did in the UI also when you hosted your cluster from your cloud providers only. As of now, we have not created any EKS cluster, correct?
Yes.
Might be Wiki has given some hints on that, right?
We have with the IPs, right? The public IPs with the port mapping here. We have exposed Nginx to port 80, right?
Port 80 we have mentioned. From there we can able to see. I'm asking.
She's asking for the access of this Nginx server through the
Okay, that you're asking. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we can access. Let's see. I thought you were asking the
Web app.
yes, web app.
Not web app.
Okay, we can do this because we need to have the security inbound and outbound rules to be set, and we can see the Nginx that you wanted to see.
Yes.
The one we created a pod, we can access because we exposed port 80, and you will have to do your the security configuration. If it allows, let's do it now. The security, and we should have the inbound, edit inbound. We should have the new rules to be added. This should be all traffic, right? And instead of this should have anywhere, correct? Save rules, and also we have to configure outbound rules, edit outbound. Correct, right?
Outbound
This is
is
the
not
way.
enabled.
Automatically it will be enabled.
Okay. Now let's copy the public IP. This is what we did, right?
Yeah.
For Jenkins and that we exposed to the web. Okay. Now let's do 80.
It was 80, I think so.
80.
Yeah, Nginx.
I don't know why it is not giving. It should give, no? Okay.
Check HTTP.
Copy the public IP. Colon 80. No. Okay, might be it is not exposed, or you can check it from your end. We should see that application similarly that you did for Jenkins,
Yes.
and you can check on that.
Okay.
Okay.
So basically, it will connect to any of the 4 containers, right? Any of
Yes.
one.
Any of no. What is your question?
It will connect to one of the 4 containers. Because we have deployed 4 right here with the replication containers.
kubectl get pods. Okay, now wait. kubectl. Okay, kubectl get pods. Okay, what is your question?
No, so basically we will in the web we will get connected to one container.
Yeah. See, this pod that we are configuring in the cluster itself, it will when you want to see the Nginx in web, it will be pointing to the only one, not
Yeah.
all 4. I mean, out of this, there will be some configuration with Nginx. It will pick that only, not with all these 4. When we wanted to expose that application in web. So we do have services. Okay, we'll see that how do we expose our application, and we do have a lot of things to learn.
Okay.
Any questions, guys? Amruta, are you clear on your doubt?
Yes.
Yeah. So you can expose, but you need to point up proper security groups and that you can see.
Okay.
Anybody has any questions?
So in this case, like Kubernetes installation, we have proceeded with a Minikube, right? But there is a Kube ADM as well, right? So what is the difference in
Kube ADM. Where you saw Kube ADM?
I mean, well, there's also a different approach, right? I think so. Like,
No. What is your question, Sharif?
No, like the Kubernetes installation, we will use only Minikube, or else we'll.
No. Wait. See, for the practice purpose, Minikube is the free trial cluster which is provided from the Kubernetes community. Okay. Now, either we should have our clusters in your cloud, which is your AKS, correct?
Yes, AKS.
EKS, right? Yes. Elastic Kubernetes Services here. You will be having the cluster created here. Your cluster will be hosted in your cloud, right? Now, with the on-premises cluster, instead of, because I don't want to spend the money on this EKS, right?
Yes.
I'll have to go with the free trial from the Kubernetes community. That is for Minikube only, the KubeADM. You getting my point now?
Yes, sir.
The free trial that the cluster that which is provided from the Kubernetes community is Minikube only. You can explore more on that particular cluster only. You can have a cluster created in EKS, and particularly you can connect to this cluster, and whatever the configuration that you want to create a pod, deployment, namespaces, you can create it here. But we will not create it manually. Every automation that we do with the cloud templates, like pod.yml, deployment, namespace, everything that we do create, it creates the infra, and the application deploys it to the web, and the application should be always up and running. Is that clear, your doubt?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The templates means we'll create the infra via the Terraform templates.
Yeah. Either we go with the Terraform. Also, we have cloud formation, cloud templates here, right? See here, there are cloud formation, right? Under this, we do have the template. You will have to use the same templates here. Cloud formation, create template. There are some stack sets. So you will have some configuration. You should have some configuration here. Through that, it gives in your window itself. And with the cloud formation, you can create the cloud templates. or Terraform.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes.
Anybody has any questions, guys? So it's 8:33. Anybody want to go to office? You can disconnect and can go. But if anybody has doubts, you can ask.
So Sandeep, sorry, yeah. Sandeep, you said once the service or the when we deploy, right, we gave replica as 2. If one
Yes.
goes down, it will automatically create. Kubernetes will
Exactly.
automatically create, right?
Exactly.
So what happens to the data? For example, I'm running an application
Mm-hmm.
and then the pod goes down.
Okay.
And when it spins immediately, the
Hmm.
whether it will be like a sticky session, my whatever the work that I have done, it will still be there, and then I
Yes.
will be able to continue.
Yeah. See, if your pod, say like this pod is crashed, this pod is picking this container, right? 1.14.2. Your
Yeah.
configuration means your data, the pod, the container is this, right? I mean, you have
Yeah.
all your configuration under the version called 1.14.2. It is like a kind of a sticky. When this pod is created, it will recreate with this configuration.
Okay.
Right? It's a sticky. It's a replica. It will not gonna affect on your configuration that you have, but only it creates the deployment. So when there is a pod is not running out of 4, so might be you will get a more load, means you will get downtime of your application, but it will not going to affect on our configuration that we have. But the configuration looks for this only when it spin up a pod.
Okay.
It's a sticky.
Okay. And in load balancer, we have these other scenarios based on the, I mean, we can configure it as dynamic as well, right?
Yes.
And initially we can give how many instances we need, or based on the dynamic also, it will increase the instances, right?
Exactly.
The same way can we do it here?
Yeah, we can do based on that only we have to do the configuration, because based on the initially when we're creating load balancers, based on that only we can create a deployment based on that we have the load balancer configuration. So it also have the load balancer traffic to be divided from the cloud perspective, and inside the cluster also we do have based on the load balancer that we created, and also we can have the deployment count based on our load balancer when we creating it.
Okay. And is there any way to say that if a pod is crashed, it should not be restarted automatically? Because I want to see why the pod has been crashed. For example, my application is running.
Okay.
I don't want the pods to be restarted if they crashed. I want to see why it is crashed. If there are any issues in my application, maybe on the network side or something.
Okay.
Right? How can we say that it should not create?
Okay. So say like when you create your deployment, obviously your pod will get restarted automatically. Okay. Now, if you don't want to restart when the pod is crashed, if you want to see the log, you will have to check when you're creating your pod itself. Once your pod is achievable of 100% working fine and stable, then only you are able to create your deployment. Getting my point here?
Yeah. So you mean to say we need to test that locally first?
Yes, locally in the sense pod itself. For this pod only we're creating our deployment, right? To increase the more instances.
Yeah.
So we need to fix it in the pod itself. And if it is the only deployment that we are creating for the working pod.
Okay.
So you can see the log and you can, because until you fix your pod will not be up and running. You will not get any, the ready state called 1/1. It will be always 1/0. You need to fix this first. Then we create a deployment of the working pod. Because deployment will not work for the crashed pod, right? Because it should withstand the configuration of the working pod. So then you can create a deployment. Because we should have the infra. For this pod only, for this Nginx pod only, we should have our instances to be created to withstand more data, right? More load. If it itself is not working, then how this deployment will work, right? So We need to fix it in the pod itself. You need to see the logs. You can see the logs and you can play around and you can see the modification also. So once you're creating a pod, we need to fix it in the container. We need to have the container application up and running in our container. Then only we are able to create a pod. Once you create a pod and up and running always, you will be able to create your deployment.
Okay. Okay. Got it.
Yes. Anybody has any questions, guys, again? Replicas here. This you are saying? No. This will assign from the cluster, the API server. Okay, so we cannot modify this, but you can modify, but you need to have your own YAML to define this. But anyways, it is giving from the API server. Why we need to worry about that, right? So we need to check the actual configuration, because what we wanted here, we wanted the pod to be created. For the created pod, we should have the deployment to withstand, to sustain the more load. If there are any instances or if there are any more load for that particular application, we should have that. But this is not required as of now. Are you getting my point? If it is required to be renamed it and you want to assign to the particular name with the last 5 digit, you need to have your own YAML. You need to spend more time. If you have a time, instead of having your project work to become, once you complete your project work, you can explore this or more, but the actual task is done, right? It is not required currently, right? That's what I'm trying to say here. Okay, when you have your own application, okay, you will be having your infra, you will be having your pod. Suppose that if you built your own application to be exposed, you can have work on this. It is possible. Okay. Yes. Anybody has any questions? Again, any doubts?
Sandeep, if I am running Nginx with some versions, so my app, if it is getting crashed, it should not be any downtime. So means we wanted to roll back, or we have to root cause until that it should be downtime.
No. We should not go for the root cause, the RCA and all. We need to fix this first. We need to roll back to the previous version. Then you need to make your application up and run. Then you switch to your root cause, the debug part. Because we should maintain the infra to be up and running always, right?
Yes.
We should immediately do the rollback. And how do we roll back? We do have a command called kubectl rollout status, right? So we'll have to roll back to the older version or maybe the newer version. We do have a command called kubectl rollout status deployment, or you can increase the deployment, or you can switch to the older version here. You can roll back to the older version.
We have to roll back manually. Means we have to change in that version.
Yeah. So as soon as your application down, you will have the email triggered or maybe any Slack notification, right? If your complete infra is down, you will immediately change this YAML, because you need to change the actual file. Actual file is this only. So when you roll back from the command line, that it is a temporary fix, right?
Yes.
We need to change the actual file here and recreate the deployment. Then you go for debug with this versioned deployment. Okay. It is depend on your Nginx application. Suppose if your Nginx application is having 2 GB of data, it is enough to have some 10 count. Some 5 to 10. More than that, we will not be having any downtime, because if 2 GB of data can handle 10 instances, right, at a time, correct? That depends on your the size of your application, and also that depends on your because we will not be having any replicas to 100, 200 like that, or maybe 20, 40 like that. For this particular namespace, under the dev namespace, for this particular pod, it is enough to have that we can judge ourselves, right? Because based on the application data, the size of your application, we can decide it. There is no limit, but you can decide yourself, but based on your application, size of your application. Getting my point? Yes. You can create 20, you can create 40. It will create it. There is no limit. Did I answer your question? Okay. Again, anybody has any questions, guys? Anything that you want to understand? Dipesh, Sagar, you guys are there in the session.
Yeah, yes, sir.
What about Sagar?
Sagar is
And don't feel others bad also, because I know only those names. And what about one more Amrita? Amrita, yes.
Yes, sir.
Clear on this, right? Bari Sagar, Jairam, Naga Reddy.
Yeah, yeah.
Sir.
yes, sir.
Okay, so if there are any questions or doubts, we'll see on tomorrow. Okay, we do have more concept to learn, more. There are a lot of things in Kubernetes. Okay, but you need to have your proper concentration on this part specifically. Pooja, are you in the session?
She was
Are
there,
you
sir. I think she
disconnected?
left now.
Okay, fine then. Anyways, we'll connect tomorrow, same time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Bye.
Thank you.